have arrived at a place where people are in a lot of pain. I don't think everyone understands that or fully gets it. What they're experiencing is overwhelm. What they're experiencing is stress. What they're experiencing is disrespect. What they're experiencing is a lack of communication, a lack of being invited to participate, to collaborate, to engage. And there's confusion around that. There's anxiety around that. And I think that what we're looking to do, those of us who are taking on the role of transformation within organizations, so leadership development, organizational development, change management, program implementation, it's really about how are we catering and tailoring to that pain. When one does not feel included, how can we support that? How can we create an environment when one can feel included? And I think we've arrived at kind of a global village that doesn't fully understand how to paradoxically hold in a place of comfort all of these different ways of engaging, mindsets, values. We can call it culture, we can call it, different backgrounds, we can call it tradition, we can call it anything we want to call it, but at the end of the day, it's how am I relating to this person, and how is this person relating to me, and we don't have to be best friends, right? But certainly kind and generous and respectful. I think for me, diversity is about the ability to comfortably hold paradox, and that inclusivity is about finding the ability to create safety for others, and belonging is the noticing and awareness and ability to create safety for oneself. And so there's this incredibly nuanced and texturized dance that one does every single day and every single moment in engaging with people on how to hold a paradox of oneself versus the other person, and to decide in that moment around inclusivity and belonging. And it's always kind of a balance of safety in this moment. And we are constantly scanning for safety. That's what our nervous system does, right? We're always looking for threat. And I feel it's an outdated model that we have in our nervous system, because we live in a civilization that doesn't really cater to mammoths and dinosaurs and tigers that are constantly out to get us. And yet we have coded that now within organizations as such. And so the system that is now, in my opinion, a little outdated in some ways, is constantly scanning for that which is unsafe. And so much of the work that I do is based on the historical data points that we bring with us. And based on those historical data points, we're evaluating that which is safe and that which is not safe. Do we belong? Do we have purpose? Are we contributing? Is our contribution mattering? Are we feeling safe in talking to this person, but maybe not so safe in that person? And so it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. And so there becomes this point as an executive, as a person working with an organization, collaborating with a team, how do we find a resource in ourselves? How do we find resources in others? But ultimately, at the end of the day, how do we find resources in ourselves so that we can recover from all of this exhaustion, of all of this overwhelm, all of this demand? There is this element of building relationships. And as I say in one of my earlier workshops, At every moment, with every person, in every situation, we are either building or dismantling trust. And sometimes we're constantly building and dismantling, so we kind of stay right here. Sometimes we grow our relationships, and sometimes our relationships aren't as fruitful or productive as we would hope, or maybe even need at that point, right? Sometimes we outgrow relationships. But at the end of the day, everything that we do is about our skill set and our mindset in building relationships. So it's about having this mindset of relationship building that's authentic and aligned, with the ability, the behavior, the skill set to actually engage in that place and come from a place that feels good. And that's what disruptive diversity is. It's cultivating a mindset and a skill set that allows the executive, that allows the person who's in the organization to very fluidly vacillate between the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere. And I talk a lot about left hemisphere being a transactional language and right hemisphere being a relational language. And that level of emotional intelligence, that cognition about in the moment, dynamically choosing with this particular person, in this setting, in this environment, with this particular resource and data point, where am I standing? You know, there's such a narrative about don't bring your emotions to work, you know, leave it at the door. I don't understand that. When we say that, what we're inviting people to do is compartmentalize. You know, if an executive is going through a divorce, or I've had an executive come to a coaching session where the wife had a miscarriage the night before. I mean, we spent the whole session processing that. I mean, we spent most of the session crying because it was a very painful thing. How do you not bring your emotions to work? How do you not bring your full self to work? Right? And if we look through the lens of spirituality, what we find is that everything is an inside job. If we look at quantum mechanics, what we find is everything is an inside job, right? We can look all the way down to a quark, and we can see that there are three quarks that make an atom, and then atoms make molecules, and then molecules make cells, and then so we can go down this rabbit hole as much as we want. Ultimately, what we have to ask is, what is it that I would like? It doesn't really matter what the team, what the team wants or the organization wants. It's the individual. What does the individual want? Is this engagement, this connection, this external environment that's really a reflection of their internal landscape, is that what they want? And if it is, awesome. Like, even if it's someone else is going, ugh, and it's fine for them, great. Like, why would I change that? But if it's not what they want, then there's curiosity. Stress. Anyone ever have that? Stress is a really interesting thing because it drives us and motivates us in some really good ways. Who knows what this is? When we have some kind of eustress, we actually, in teams, we actually see positive results about 2 weeks after. And this has been shown to me in my executive teams and coaching over and over and over again. And it's really amazing. So this is really valuable, and this is what we want, because what happens in eustress is the ability to recover. Right? When you work out, you're not supposed to work out 5 days in a row. You're supposed to take a break. Because why? There's a recovery period. So you can rest, repair. Repair is key. Anyone ever have this? So this is a way or a part. Right? Distress is defined as anxiety, sorrow, pain, grief, exhaustion, overwhelm. What's really fascinating is when we actually value purpose over belonging, we might actually find ourselves in entitlement and righteousness. And if we flip that, now we might find ourselves in victimhood or in neediness. These are the zones of exclusion for those of you who weren't here. Because this becomes all about safety, and this becomes all about mattering. I matter, or I am safe. This is a person choosing between one or the other. I'm going to give up my dream so that I belong and feel safe and still loved and don't get disowned in my family. Or I'm going to give up belonging and get disowned and go follow my path. This is the same quote that we saw last time. This is Bessel van der Kolk's quote. He is the leading he's the executive director of the trauma facility in Minneapolis. And he basically says that anything that you're experiencing that is unbearable or intolerable is in fact trauma. Going to a meeting with someone you don't like. And, you know, we've talked about fight, flight, and freeze, right? So we've talked about this in the workshops. This is when the nervous system actually is now in shutdown mode. And there is an inability and a skill set to create a sense of warmth for self and certainly for others. And if this has gone on for 3 months, 6 months, a year, 5 years, 30 years, we have PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Do I have any clients? Who thinks I have any clients who have PTSD? Like half my clients. But here's the key point. Failure to recover. You have to build in recovery time. Every workshop that I have said is about self-accompanied, self-resourcing, self-care, self-soothing, self-respect, whatever self it is that's not self-medicating. So this is failure to recover built-in processes. You've got a CEO who's freaking out and can't raise money. You've got a CEO who's about to be fired. You've got a CEO that has favorites every 2 weeks and you're about to not be one of them. So here's one more picture you can take. I'm not going to go through it, but this is when everything is going well and we have cohesive teams, we get this. And again, this is always a daily effort. So there's this really interesting concept in biology called the law of requisite variety. Does anybody know this? The law of requisite variety simply states that the organism that is the most adaptable in the ecosystem survives. Just apply that concept to your team.